Hello everybody, and thanks for joining today's webinar. Today's session is around simplifying data engineering and sort of how to cut costs in Microsoft Fabric. Today's session is really designed to give some practical insight in how TimeXtender can simplify data integration and orchestration within Fabric, and also that the main sort of purpose of that is to reduce the cost and speed up the time for delivery. So I'll kick us off with a sort of brief introduction as to who Climber are. Hopefully some of you on the meeting today already know who we are, that's why you're here. Just a super quick overview, and then I'll hand over to Tom and Adam. They'll run through sort of TimeXtender's TDI layer. We'll go through a real world customer use case from UCC Coffee, and then Adam will give us a sort of an in-depth sort of deeper dive into how TimeXtender works in practice. So today's session scheduled for 40 minutes. All participants are on mute. That just enables a nice smooth experience for everybody. Please do use the Q&A if you've got any questions throughout today's session. The Q&A panel will be kept an eye on, and there will be some time sort of saved at the end for questions. And this will be recorded. So at the end of this session, we will share out the link for the recording. So please do feel free to share with any of your colleagues that may find today's session useful. If I can just jump over to the slides now, and hopefully you can see me going through this. So Climber were founded in 2007. We are a European partner around data integration and analytics with tools such as Click, Microsoft, and other tools such as TimeXtender. We offer a number of different services, which I'll cover quickly on the next slide. We have around 400 customers across the group in multiple different sectors, all the way from sort of, pre-revenue startups all the way through to global enterprise businesses. We're a group of around 100 in terms of team size across all 5 offices. We work with sort of on-prem legacy, cloud, hybrid, and we also offer sort of hosted services for our customers. And then we also have a dedicated expert services team, which run a sort of managed service around support and then patching and updates and all that kind of stuff for our customers' environments. So if I just move on. These are the 5 pillars that Climber sort of operate within. Strategic advisory is where we have a discovery session, understanding the investment that customers have made in their sort of systems and their architecture. Solution development is actually building out new solutions or enhancing existing solutions that are already there, using our resource alongside a collaborative approach with your existing teams. User training, so we offer training on both Power Platform, Power BI and Click, and that ranges from sort of very basic end user training all the way up to advanced back-end scripted developer level training, infrastructure services, and then support, as I've sort of loosely covered on the previous slide. So joining me today on today's session, we've got Tom from Climber, who's our sort of data integration practice lead, and then Adam Rudd, who is a solution specialist for TimeXtender. What I will do is hand over to Tom, and he's going to go through the sort of benefits of TimeXtender and a real world customer case study that we've got. Over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Alex. So hi everyone, yeah, as Alex said, Tom Cottrell. I'm one of the senior BI consultants here at Climber and head up the data integration. So today I'm just going to briefly talk about a couple of things. Going to have an overview of UCC, which is our case study for TimeXtender, and then we're going to have a look at the difficulties they faced before adopting TimeXtender. Going to have a look at some brief benefits of data integration generally. And then we're going to see the positive effect that TimeXtender brought to UCC. So who are UCC? Next slide, please, Alex. Thanks. So the UCC are one of Europe's largest coffee companies. They're actually founded some 90 years ago in Japan. They supply private label and branded coffee to supermarkets, coffee shops, hotels, catering companies, that kind of thing. They're very much a data-driven business with a broad user base for their data. And they've got a requirement to deliver timely insights to internal teams as well as to external partners across multiple companies. So some of the challenges that UCC were facing were pretty common, siloed data systems. So key data was spread across multiple platforms, made access difficult. There's a lot of slow manual reporting, So reports required time-consuming manual work to prepare and validate, caused delayed insights. So decision makers lacked real-time visibility into key metrics, and there are operational bottlenecks. So analyst teams are spending far too much time prepping data rather than actually using it. And this, of course, is gave them very limited agility. So the existing setup, it can scale very easily, and it's difficult to support future growth or new use cases. So now, next slide, please. We're just going to have a look at some of the general benefits of data integration, especially when using a tool like TimeXtender. So one of them is a unified low-code platform. So TimeXtender, it combines data ingestion, transformation, and modeling all in one place. So it saves time and it reduces complexity. One of the main features, jumping to the middle one, sorry, not the next one, is real-time ready. So change data capture. So the CDC support, which you get in TimeXtender, means you're always working with the freshest data. It's critical for operational reporting and AI use cases. And of course, we can say it's cloud agnostic or vendor agnostic, so you're not tied to one particular vendor. TimeXtender works with any cloud platform or on-premise warehouse, so Snowflake or Synapse, etc. And then can look at automated, the fact it's automated and scalable. This is a great benefit, so it reduces manual dev work. Once you set the logic, the platform automates it and scales it nice and easily. And this can give you data for everybody. So, crucially, once the data's prepared, it's accessible across the business from dashboards to ML pipelines. So this adds up to faster delivery, lower cost, and more freedom. So we've looked so far at the difficulties faced by UCC, some of the benefits of data integration. So now we're going to have a quick look at some of the successes that TimeXtender brought to UCC. So one of them was all the data in one place. So before TimeXtender, data was siloed, as we mentioned. Now it's centrally available. So it makes reporting analysis much easier. There's faster implementation. They got up and running nice and quickly. Speed means these insights are delivered to stakeholders almost immediately. This positive business impact. So internal teams, they could shift their focus from plumbing the data through to actually delivering valuable value and supporting growth. So there we go. We can see. So this is a nice, strong illustration of how the right data integration tool. It's not just a technical win; it can be a strong strategic enabler. And that's all from me. So I hand over to Adam now. Adam from TimeXtender is going to give us a fantastic demo of TimeXtender on a Fabric implementation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. Right, let me just share my screen. Okay, great. Hopefully you can all see that. So welcome everyone. As Tom mentioned and Alex mentioned, I'm Adam. I'm a solution specialist at TimeXtender. It's great to be with you here today and talk about Microsoft Fabric. But before we get into that, I just wanted to talk a little bit briefly about the data divide, the idea that there's a gap between organizations who can collect, analyze and leverage their data to drive them forward, being data-led, as Tom mentioned, and those who cannot. And there's a great read on Wikipedia about this that I'd encourage you to read if you're interested. But essentially, you have on one side of the gap businesses who are already using data in that way, and on the other side, those who want to but don't have the skills to, along with the people who just don't want to, full stop. And generative AI was the promise, what we were promised, that was saving us from this by helping businesses to fill the gap and to effectively catch up. Now, if you've used ChatGPT or similar in your day-to-day work, you'll know how great it is at really being able to empower you to move forward in terms of productivity. But using generative AI for code generation can be problematic. And the latest studies unfortunately find that AI code is correct between only 31 and 65% of the time. And so unfortunately, this idea of generative AI saving businesses and bridging the gap just isn't happening. Now, every 3 to 5 years, Microsoft comes out with the next big thing since the last big thing that they announced, and Microsoft Fabric is no different. It's an incredibly powerful platform, all built on top of OneLake, which is that unified storage format, all file-based with fast aggregations, which means easy sharing across teams and workloads. And now with shortcuts, that data can be made available from other areas in the OneLake, and it can be even browsed through the OneLake File Explorer. It's really great. And then you've got the serverless compute. So storage is compute independent, allowing these various computing engines to exist. And then, of course, we've got all of the various workloads, Data Factory, Lakehouse, Warehouse, Database, and Power BI for all of the visualization and analysis. And anyone who's already using Power BI Premium will be familiar with Fabric and that layout. And you're going to have to go to that in order to use that going forward. But there are some challenges that new Fabric users face when they want to start their journey on Microsoft Fabric. And as I mentioned, it looks, when you go into the Fabric kind of dashboard, it looks very much like Power BI. And that's very deliberate. You know, Microsoft want that familiarity so that it kind of reduces the gap between where you are and where they want you to be. But once you've decided on your capacity and created a workspace, there are lots of options to choose from to get started, which really forces people to need to know exactly what it is that they want and the tools and how to use them. And that kind of workflow complexity, with there being so many options, can easily lead to decision fatigue, misconfigurations, and fragmented workflows that are difficult to manage. Then there's fragmented metadata. So without a unified metadata model, lineage tracking, data consistency, and automation are all difficult processes in Fabric. And with so many teams and workloads in one space, managing the big picture view becomes incredibly difficult, and data quality issues can quickly and easily start to creep in. Then we've got the skills gap. Now, if you know anything about Fabric, you'll know this is not your traditional data warehouse. So ideally, you want to implement in Spark, but if you're a traditional SQL developer, this is a huge learning curve. I mentioned just a few moments ago how we're now seeing the accuracy of AI code being between 30 to 60%. So you can build, say, for example, the first 70% very quickly, but understanding how to create the crucial remaining 30% can be really difficult when you didn't write the code. And that creates a greater reliance on senior engineers who do have the skill set to examine the code and modify it, unlike perhaps younger, less experienced engineers. And then there's unpredictable costs. Now, serverless compute does not mean pay only for compute. And so accessing your data requires your capacity to be running all the time. Overages lead to system freezes because different workloads consume different capacities, and they will go offline if you use up your capacity, forcing you to go to the next tier to get your data back up and running again. And on that note, I found this post on Reddit, which was entitled, "Tried to roll out Microsoft Fabric, ended up rolling straight into a 20K a month wall." And I won't ask you to read the whole thing, but the summary on the right-hand side illustrates what has actually happened here, which is where they've got a poorly designed ChatGPT inspired pipeline. They left a long running pipeline job unmonitored overnight. There's no version control implemented. Their tenant is now locked, which in Fabric means no deployments, no pipeline runs, no changes, and no access. And this is their production system. They are currently paying 8K a month. They need to go to the 20K a month tier in order to regain access to their instance. So they're paying thousands for a frozen production environment. And there was just one little section here that really stood out and summarized it beautifully, saying the dream was Spark magic, ChatGPT powered pipelines and effortless deployment. The reality, burned out capacity, missed deadlines, and a very expensive cloud paperweight. And these people are not alone. We're seeing more and more people with higher costs than they envisaged when it comes to Microsoft Fabric. So a little bit about who TimeXtender are. We were founded in 2006 by a group of consultants doing traditional SQL data warehousing. who found that designing the same solutions by hand over and over again was quite inefficient. And so they decided to pour all of that extensive knowledge of how to build these platforms using industry best practices and procedural workflows, etc., into a unified platform that simplifies, automates, and executes these complex warehouse solutions using metadata. And that was all then wrapped into a single low-code drag-and-drop user interface we call data integration. Now, to date, our data integration product has automated over 4,000 solutions across 95 countries. And it means that no matter what technology our solution sits on, our customers get production-ready code 100% of the time, rather than relying on the 31 to 65% of AI-generated code. It operates on the principle of three instances or columns or swim lanes. The first is called ingest, and that is where you would land data into a common area, like a OneLake, for example, and standardize the format across all those data sources. And that's a great place if you want to land for machine learning or target for machine learning or AI models that need access to raw data. Next, we have our prepare instance, which is where you would build a modern data warehouse and apply all of the various transformation rules, business logic, and create a single source of truth. And that can run on Snowflake, Fabric, SQL, Azure, SQL pools, and AWS RDS. And finally, we have our deliver instance, the data marts or the semantic layer, where reports or business reporting data is made available to reporting users. And that could be on Tableau, on Click, Power BI Premium, CSV, REST. There's loads of options to choose from. So let's look at how that works on top of Fabric. If you're familiar with the medallion architecture of Microsoft, you'll be familiar with the bronze and the silver lakehouse. That's where we would do our ingest. So we build that on top of the lakehouse. And TimeXtender would generate all of those Spark notebooks for you as you ingest data, addressing that skills gap. And that means you get to leverage more efficient, more cost-effective solution that's aligned with best practices. And we can also apply incremental load. So we can take just the values that have changed instead of having to take full runs every time we want to bring new data across. In our prepare instance, we build that directly on top of the lakehouse or the Fabric SQL database. And that's where all these visual denormalizations would take place through the drag and drop interface that I mentioned earlier. And then our deliver instance sits on top of their gold layer, so the semantic layer for Fabric, Power BI reporting, etc. And that makes it really easy to push out to other tools. And the metadata approach that we use means that you get instant lineage throughout the entire product and automatic documentation, which makes it great for CI/CD implementations. Now, I'm not here to tell you that TimeXtender is the only way to go when it comes to Fabric, because the Microsoft machine that is their marketing department has done an incredible job of promoting Fabric as the one-stop shop for everything you need. And it can be done. It is true. You can build an entire solution on Fabric, but you'll just have to use multiple tools and need to know exactly how they work in order to get the benefit from them. So, for example, you'd need to use Data Flows Gen 2 for extracting and transforming data using their Power Query interface. You need to use pipelines for orchestrating data movement and activities, a bit like Azure Data Factory. The lakehouses and warehouses will be for storing and transforming data using either SQL or Spark. And then you would visualize in their Power BI reporting and dashboarding endpoint. So yes, technically a customer can build an end-to-end data workflow in Fabric, but here's what that process actually looks like in practice. You'd need to manually connect to each data source. You need to manually define the data flows or the copy activities to be able to ingest the data. You'll need to write and maintain transformation logic in either Power Query, SQL, or Spark. You'll need to create and manage pipelines to orchestrate the tasks with custom triggers and schedules. You'll need to set up and use Git integration to track versions, because documentation and change tracking are not automated in Fabric, and also use Git to manually move projects between development, test, and production environments, or use Git-based workflows, and then manage the governance and lineage across services using Microsoft Purview, which needs to be configured separately and doesn't offer complete end-to-end coverage because they don't activate the metadata in Microsoft Fabric. Now, this can all work for small teams or simple projects, but it can very quickly become very time-consuming and easy to become inconsistent and more fragile as environments grow. And that's why something like TimeXtender can add significant value, not by replacing Fabric, but by automating and orchestrating the parts that Fabric leaves to manual setup and coding. And that can be a game changer, especially for teams who are early in their Fabric journey and haven't yet experienced the complexity of maintaining a scalable, governed data environment over time. And so TimeXtender offers end-to-end automation and automatically handles the ingestion of data, the transformation, orchestration, deployment, and documentation, all just using metadata. There's no pipelines to build, there's no code to maintain. You think about what you want to do instead of how you need to do it. And that creates a faster time to value. So what might take weeks to configure in Microsoft Fabric can often be done in days or even hours with TimeXtender. It is a future-proofed solution, and Microsoft Fabric is tied to Microsoft's technology stack, but TimeXtender, as Tom mentioned, is platform agnostic and works across Azure, Snowflake, SQL Server, AWS, and even on-premises environments, giving customers options and reducing long-term vendor lock-in. Our simplified environment management means that TimeXtender uses a structured promotion and one-click deployment for those dev to test to prod environment rollouts. A Fabric requires custom GitOps or manual steps to achieve that. And then there's built-in governance. TimeXtender centrally stores and activates metadata to provide lineage, apply version control, and document every step, every change automatically. With Fabric, these are all disconnected tasks spread out across multiple tools. And then, of course, there's the cost and the management of it. And at TimeXtender, we have an orchestration product for this, which automates all of those pipeline processes for you and gives a visual overlay of the operations that are taking place or that have taken place in a web-based view where users can see the status of activities, interact with them in a controlled way, and rerun any processes without involvement from back office teams. But it can do even more than that. Using TimeXtender's orchestration tool, you can also control your Azure infrastructure and Fabric capacities such that they can be scaled up before pipeline activities begin, check that they've scaled correctly, then let the jobs run, and then reduce the capacity again afterwards. It can also pause the capacity automatically at times during, say, evenings and weekends when there's no requirement for reporting access, so you can save on idle capacity costs. Now, we're going to see this in action and take a look at a use case which is quite common, where a business has been acquired by a private equity firm and wants to consolidate their existing ERP system that's based in Europe with a new ERP system that's based in the UK. They have a warehouse already that's in Microsoft Fabric and a dashboard in Power BI that they want to incorporate the new system into and add a new field for gross line total that shows Great British pounds. So I will just turn my camera off so for a bit of better experience for you so you can see it. And let's begin. So we start off in the TimeXtender admin portal. And we can see my Fabric environment here. This is my ingest instance. And if I just scroll down, you can see that's all the details of my capacity, my workspace naming, and my data sources. I've currently got one EU ERP system. So I'm going to go ahead and add another one, which is for the UK system that my IT admin has provisioned me access to. And we're going to call that AW 2022 and add a note. We're just using the AdventureWorks dataset to recreate this. This is our sister company's ERP system. Okay, and we'll add that. And next we're going to add another data source, which is for our exchange rate information that we need in order to display pounds. So I'll call that one rates API and add a comment for that. There we go, and then click add. Great. Okay, so now we'll go into TimeXtender data integration, and we will refresh our instance at the top here. And what TimeXtender will do is search for new data sources, realize that 2 new ones have been added, and immediately begin an import metadata task where it goes to each endpoint and finds everything it can about them through metadata discovery. Okay, our UK ERP system is done. Let's have a look in our metadata manager to see what it discovered. And on the left here, we can see all of the source tables and views that are in that data set. On the right-hand side is all the different field types, for example. So I can deselect from here if I want to, but I'm just going to take all of them. So that's all 91 tables. I'm just going to commit those and add them all for now. Okay, that's great. And now our exchange rates metadata discovery is finished. So let's go and check that out. And it just contains this table here, which if I refresh to the right-hand side, shows me all the different currency codes. So yeah, I'll take all of those. Great. So now I'm going to just go and get all of the rates by invoking this full load task. And that's going to go to that API, retrieve all of those records and bring them into my data lake. And I'll do the same for my UK ERP system. Now we mentioned earlier that while that's running, we're going to set up incremental load. So we get the full load running right now, but I now just want to set up incremental load to only capture the items that have changed after this. So we will go and add a rule, and our rule will be look for a column in this data set that contains a modified date. And we want it to handle any primary key updates that change in the source over time so they don't catch us out. We'll refresh that, and TimeXtender has found all of the tables in that data set that contain a modified date that we can use the last value of, the last maximum value, and only capture any changes of those after time. I'll just add some primary keys here for these views that I've imported. And one more. Okay, and that is done. So now incremental load is now configured so that after this full load has run, every time that we run it subsequently, we'll only capture the data that's changed. And what I want to do right now, as that's building in our Fabric notebook, I'm going to open my Fabric interface just here and bring that across. And we can actually see the PySpark code that's being written in our Fabric notebook that's ingesting that data from our data source into the OneLake. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to TDI. Oh, that's completed successfully. Great. And we'll just check. Yeah, that has as well. Wonderful. So now we're going to go and select our data and open up our Prepare Lakehouse, which is our silver layer. And this is the existing warehouse that we've already got on Fabric. I'm now just going to go search for the tables that I want to add to it. Okay, so I want this one here. So what I'm going to do is drag and drop and smart synchronize with the other product table that's already there. And then I'm going to search for my second table that I want to bring across. And do exactly the same, use a smart synchronize. And what that does is it maps all of the column types of the existing data warehouse with the same on the system that I'm trying to add. and intelligently map it so that I don't have to map each and every field. And you'll notice that 2 of those have a number 2 marked in red next to them. And that's because it's found something that it couldn't map on its own, and it needs us to help look for it. So this is the original system. Everything is in bold on the right hand side, but in this other one I've got a different one that's not in bold, and that's because my size needs to match this one. It didn't have size underscore cm, and now it does. That's a match. Now that 2 has gone away, so now I can do exactly the same thing with my product model table, find out where the discrepancy is by the one that's not bold. Catalog desk, it should be catalog description, so I can just drag and drop. Notice how TimeXtender won't let me drop it onto something that doesn't have the same type, and that's it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go and get my exchange rate information. Yeah, that's all good. Yep. From our exchange rate API. And let's just swap these around. There you go, so we work left to right. And then just drag and drop that table from our ingest to our prepare. So this is going to our lakehouse. And that's it. So let's just pop that open so that it's a little bit easier for us to view because it contains a lot of columns. And now what I'm going to do is I need to relate these tables to my sales order detail table and my rates table based on the currency, or the base currency, which in this case is the euro. So I'm going to find euro in my rates table, and I'm just going to drag and drop it on top of the base currency to create a relation. Yes. And now I can drag any field from my rates table. So I'll take GBP for Great British Pounds and add it to sales order detail using this relation, and it will add it as a field to that table. Super easy. So now that we've done that, we can add a new field into our sales order detail. And we're going to call this one gross line total. Numeric. Okay. And we're going to apply a transformation on this because we want it to look up the value dynamically. So we'll do a field transformation, custom value, click add. And now what we'll see is a nice SQL-based view. So you can either type SQL in here, or you can just drag and drop from the fields that are available on the right. So I'm going to take, for example, unit price, and I'm going to say multiplied by, where are you? Order quantity multiplied by our new value GBP. And notice how TimeXtender has parameterized all of those fields. And we click OK. That's now done. But let's say I'm a little bit indecisive and I don't like my naming convention of that previous table that I brought in called rates, and I now want to go ahead and change it. Okay, so I'm going to just very simply right click it, go to edit table, and I'm going to call this something a bit more meaningful. We'll call this exchange rates. Click OK. Now, usually that would break everything, okay, because I've just created a dependency and a relationship, but TimeXtender has already got the memo on this. It knows that I've changed it, and it's going to update and manage all of those dependencies automatically for me. So no broken pipelines, no broken joins. Okay, we're going to close our ingest because we don't need that open anymore. And now we're going to deploy and execute, which is us telling TimeXtender and the underlying platform that we want you to go and create all of the really complex code that sits behind those really basic drag and drop operations. And then we're going to have TimeXtender automatically deploy that code into Fabric and move the data across from our data lake into the Fabric Lakehouse. We've got version control here, as we mentioned earlier. It's always good to add a note so that we can go back to this point in time. We know what people have done in case we need to roll back any of our changes. That's all built into the product. And there we go. That's using our best practice PySpark code right now onto our Fabric notebook. And what I'll do when this finishes, I'll just show you. I'll open up my Lakehouse. There we go. And you can see all of the objects that are now in my silver layer. And I'll go to one of the tables here, sales order detail that we were working in. Let's collapse that. And you can now see that there are hundreds of lines of codes, best practice PySpark code that have been automatically generated through TimeXtender without us having to write a single line. And there are hundreds of tables, or there's nearly 100 tables, so that's thousands of lines of code for each one that you don't have to think about. That's our custom transformations there, some cleanup scripts, all done automatically.
Just in the interest of time, Adam, if I could just quickly interject with a question, if that's possible. What customer that's not able to join us, but they are going to watch this later, asked, how does TimeXtender help to control and optimize costs in Fabric? Because obviously that's the whole sort of title of the webinar. They're just asking how can it achieve that?
Yeah, and that's a great question. That's through that orchestration piece that we saw earlier. We got that kind of like traffic light system, and you can decide at what times your capacity turns on and turns off, or pauses and resumes, and even scale up to allow those jobs to run through and then lower it back down again.
Perfect. Yeah, because obviously that's how Fabric's priced, right? It's terms in compute and capacity and things like that. So being able to scale that up when you are going to be doing those big tasks really does help. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me just finish off here. So if we go to here and just have a quick look at the last of our instances, our deliver here, which is where our reporting is all targeted. Open up sales order detail here. And we just want to bring that new gross line total across from our Lakehouse into a gold layer. We'll add a helpful tooltip. This is unit price multiplied by order quantity multiplied by GBP. And we'll give that a nice currency with the pounds symbol. There we go. And then we'll just say that that's going to be a sum and click OK. And then we are going to just deploy and execute this change. Again, we've got the version control here, so that we have separate version control for the prepare and the deliver endpoints, or the instances, so that we have that separation. We don't interrupt people when we make a change. And that will take just a second. There we go. And then finally,
oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to show that the last little bit here, which is the Power BI. If I refresh that, we will now see two systems in this report, and we've got over here our gross line total is available, which we can drag and drop. And if I hover over that, we'll now see the tooltip that I created earlier. That's it. There we go. All right, let me ditch this screen share and come back to you, Alex.
Awesome. Yeah, the sort of question was just around that version control. So if somebody makes changes, obviously you can leave the notes, which is great from like an audit perspective. You can kind of see who's made those changes. They can put a bit of information there. If something goes wrong, or if for any reason, the changes they've committed, you need to maybe roll back or go back to a previous version, how is that something that's possible?
It's so easy to do, and it's all contained within the product. Yeah, so the prepare instance where we create that data warehouse in the middle, we can just open a version and it will show us all of the changes that have been made, and we can roll back to that point really quickly. Yeah, no costly backup and restore procedures. It's all just done within the product, and the same for the deliver endpoint. So if it's just been changed that's been made to a report, we can very quickly roll that back.
Perfect. And that doesn't have to just be the previous version, right? That could be 3 versions
No, it'd be
prior.
several versions ago. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. And I know we're pretty much bang on time. I've got one more slide I would like to just quickly share at the end of that. But thank you for that, Adam. That's really, really good demo and introduction to TimeXtender. So much appreciated on that. And also for Tom and the UCC case study. Just a final piece from me. We are a partner of TimeXtender. We are able to sort of utilize their expertise and Adam's expertise around sort of proof of concepts, understanding your own data problems. So what we're offering anybody that's joined this webinar and even people that watch it online, we're looking at doing a sort of a 45-minute tailored session where we can understand, what maybe sort of data problems that you've got in terms of whether it's CDC, real-time, data management, all of that kind of stuff that the platform offers, and kind of break that down into sort of 3 areas, understanding what your problems are, identifying how TimeXtender could support those needs, and then showcase that and how we can solve it. And then following on from that, we are able to look at things such as like eval periods, where we can actually then start to do a bit of a lightweight POC, connect this to some of your source systems, and actually start to see this in action in real time with your data, and then landing it into a data warehouse or a landing target of your choice. So please do get in touch with us if that's something that's of interest. We'll obviously follow up with everybody who's been on the webinar and any further questions, which it seems there isn't. So I'll take it that everything that we've covered today has been thoroughly explained, and that leaves it all for us to say farewell, I suppose.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks ever so much. Cheers again. Take care.